Welcome back. The iconic Market Theatre continues to offer entertaining stage productions that showcase the creativity of South African artists. The theatre was home to the celebrated late Winston Ntshona, who passed away recently after more than 50 years of theatre work and dozens of awards. He worked extensively with Dr. John Kani and playwright Athol Fugard. But this Women's Month, the Market Theatre will be highlighting the contributions and impact that art maestro Florence Phillips had in building a greater understanding of art with early Johannesburg and its contemporary society. And here to discuss is Director Greg Homan and Leila Henriquez. And thank you very much for making time to be with us here.
Good to be with you, Tom.
And we appreciate the work you do as creative people, as artists, and we know that sponsors are a bit tight-fisted and make it difficult for the creative people to showcase their work, but still, you need to have the right kind of attitude and heart to keep going, isn't it, Greg?
For sure. Times are tough. I've noticed a big shift in the last few years in relation to that, but we're very pleased to be at the market with this one woman show during Women's Month. Yeah, and I suppose Florence Phillips is a personality in Johannesburg's history who made it her duty to do what she thought was right in her day to contribute to the art world by giving us the Johannesburg Art Gallery as one of her kind of contributions that she really fought for in her time.
And Leila, your views about the contributions of Florence specifically, but women in general, in the showcasing of South Africa's creativity?
Wow. Well, if I can speak, I play two roles in the play. I play the actress that has to play Florence Phillips, who's talking to the writer, and then I play the ghost of Florence Phillips, who's stuck in Jabea Park at the fence outside her gallery. So I move between those two characters, and I suppose the conversation is around the sustainability of art, how art, once it's placed in a space, changes that space and continues to change that space. So, yeah, so it's a complex, deep play, as well as giving an insight into who she was and her kind of inner workings.
I will talk about the execution of the whole story in a moment, but I still want to stay with the theme of women, if I may, for a while, and we can continue along those lines. Greg, I recently read something about art and artists, and I agreed with the writer who said, you know, they go through the pain and the joy of living through the whole experience and finding an artistic way of telling us that this is what we go through as real people, isn't it? That they do the hard work for us when it comes to the emotional slog.
For sure. I mean, I think that as art has played, I mean, you mentioned Winston Ntshona earlier in your introduction, and you know, there's someone whose career, particularly in the 70s with the Serpent Players and with Dr. John Kani and Athol Fugard, you know, art thrives in moments of hardship. You know, there was a wonderful moment in the 1980s in South Africa, which wasn't a wonderful moment for the country, but it was a wonderful moment for theatre. In 1986, there were 5-6 remarkable plays that all come out of the state of emergency. So I think that the relationship between art and hardship and struggle and all of that is closely connected. And so a play like this, which happens during Women's Month, is obviously in some ways exploring what it means to be a woman, in a particular time, to have a huge body of history that Johannesburg has, 100 years of history. And so all of that is kind of intertwined in what Maya Tobe has made as a really complex play. And yeah, that, to answer your question, the relationship between hardship and struggle and theatre are deeply connected.
I suppose that explains even the awards that were won by the play Marikana, for instance. The tragedy and shocked a lot of people, but once it was turned into creative piece of work and put on stage, people appreciated it to the extent of it receiving so many awards. But to go back to the story of Florence, the artist then, because Joburg itself, as much as it's been in existence for a long time, has undergone a whole lot of transformations, right? And somebody today living in Hillbrow or anywhere else around Johannesburg would say, what Joburg is it that Florence is all about? Maybe that is what will give us a sense of the story of Florence. Which Joburg is it?
Well, I think what's amazing about it is that it's many different types of Joburgs, because it's the Joburg of the 1900s. and is the Joburg of the now put together at the same time, because she's a ghost, reliving her history, but at the fence in Joburg Park now.
And I wonder how Florence, managed and dealt with the Joburg of the time in the context of the issues of today, right? We could talking about South Africa being a patriarchal society, and that we've got to transform across the board, across all cultures. And then in the 1900s, the early days, it was an evolving city based on money and the power of money as it was being created. So I can imagine that women did not really enjoy that much of an influential role.
And that was why I think she was so extraordinary. She grew up in Kimberley on the mining camps. She came from quite a tough background, and she married Sir Lionel Phillips, so she married into wealth, a landlord at the time. But she was such a formidable and strong, energized person, and once she kind of set her sights on something, she would just bulldoze her way until she got it. And she set her sights on creating the best art gallery in the world. And that's what she did.
And her, I mean, what the play is also interrogating is this relationship between privilege and access to money and a particular history and a particular time, and to whiteness. What is this moment that happens in the 1886, 1890s, 1900s, and this woman who arrives in Johannesburg, she feels in her own right displaced in some ways, but she has access to money through her husband, and is part of a colonial project, and it's obviously complicated reflecting on all of that. But she feels that what she can contribute in that moment is offering art, and making a space for artists and contributing to that conversation. And so the play is not answering any easy questions. In fact, it's asking a lot of difficult questions. And it's trying to problematize how we think about a legacy like that.
Well, I think it's interesting that you even have a ghost character in the whole thing, so that you give Florence a chance to reflect on what has transpired since then until now. Just for us to have a flavor of it now. The ghost of Florence, what is it telling us currently before we go to the theater? Don't spoil it for us, but give us a good enough sizzle to go and check it out ourselves. You don't want to?
You mean go in to do a piece?
Oh, no. You can give me the insights, the way you saw it when you were trying to get into character.
I mean, she is stuck in time at the fence now. She had a love affair that was unrequited, that she's sort of waiting for. And the fence around the gallery is preventing her from moving on. That's actually, that's what's caught her, and that's why she's a ghost, is because she's trying to understand the kind of brutality of this fence. And that's what's freezing her in time.
And, well, it's up to us as theatre goers to make up our minds once we see the play and so on. But I'm sure you've got a particular sense of what we should take away from the play.
Yeah. Well, I think you should take away a lot of questions about Johannesburg, about history, about colonialism, about whiteness, about legacies. Yeah, I mean, I think that those are the sort of questions that are being put on the table in quite a complex and quite rich way, and quite a playful way as well. I mean, the play is dealing with very serious things, but I like to think of it as playing with history. And it's, if we think about it in its kind of universal statement, it's about fences, and it's about how we choose to put up fences or how we choose to pull fences down and take fences down, and how we allow ourselves to interact or to block access from each other. And those themes are universal. And I think that the playwright has used the Johannesburg Art Gallery and the fence that keeps the people from Joburg Park out of that space as a kind of metaphor for what could be a conversation about the wall and Mexico and Trump, or what could be about Israel and Palestine, or what could be a conversation about the suburbs of Sandton and gated communities.
Well, actually, the interesting thing when you mentioned Joburg Park is that for many of us who came into the city in the 80s, that was one of the places that we're very familiar with. So when you talk about it, there's a bit of a recollection taking place in my mind, thinking about the Joburg Park of the time and the art gallery, most definitely. So the play is on until when?
It's on until the 26th of August, and we play Tuesday to Saturday at 8:15 and Sundays at 3:15.
And you've had preview sessions. How did the audiences respond?
great. It stimulates dialogue and debate, and they really seem to appreciate the freshness of the style and get absorbed into which is actually a story. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you don't have to be an art aficionado or somebody who's into art galleries and so on to appreciate the story, I presume.
No, I think you've got to be someone who's interested in Johannesburg, or interested in questions around living in a city and feeling displaced, which I think in some ways is something that everyone
and it's still
speaks
continuing,
to
by the way.
Yeah.
It's still continuing. Was then continues up to today, I suppose.
Sure. And that's the echo of Florence Phillips's actual words, which are part of the text, and what she's talking about resonate with 2018, even though she was writing them and saying those words in 1900. You know.
Greg and Leila, thank you very much for popping by and also giving us a chance to peer into the Market Theatre and get a few of our friends to go to the Market Theatre and enjoy the place the productions that you're staging there. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Tim. We look forward to welcoming them.
Sure, I will be coming around. And that's all we had for you tonight, and from us here on Tonight with Tim Modise. We invite you to join us again next time, and good night to you.